Thank you. So I hope that gave you a little bit of an insight into the background of Starchild. So as you can imagine, you can hear that okay? Yeah, you can hear me okay? As you can imagine, it was totally surreal. And as I say, nothing short of a miracle, really, to have found Frankie's family 18 years after his death in Uganda. I didn't go there to find his family, but I really do believe that I was guided to find that family. And I'd been trying to go for so long, and there was so many delays and setbacks, and I was pretty sure in my heart that God wanted me to go. But it was just so many delays. And when I did go, it really was like I was a puppet from the minute I got off the airplane. The synchronicities, the serendipity, or the God incidences, or whatever you want to call them, that happened to me were just absolutely nothing short of a miracle. So obviously during that process, I uncovered who Frankie's mum was. And I don't have all night to talk about all of that, unfortunately, but we found out that she'd been a teacher. So we thought it would be lovely to maybe build a school in her memory and Frankie's. So when Ronnie and I were touring around Uganda and going to visit different schools to find out about the school system and everything, it became really apparent to me that they were really only interested in the academic pupil. It was all about, they wanted to be doctors, lawyers, pilots, all of that. And both Ronnie and myself were in the arts. Ronnie had been an actor and writer, and I've been a musician, singer and writer, and I don't know what we would have done without the arts. And I remember asking a teacher, or more than one, about some of the children that weren't doing so well at school. And the teacher just basically said, oh, well, he's stupid. And I remember getting called stupid at school, and it hurt. And it took me a long time to recover from some of the nonsense that I put up with at school. So I started to really feel that what was missing was the creative arts. And so when we came back, we kind of changed direction, and the board supported us, and we decided to do something a wee bit more unprecedented and built the School for Creative Arts for £16,000 as opposed to about £100,000, which we were originally quoted. So we're pretty good at navigating a fairly complex, corrupt society, although I'm beginning to wonder that it's not the only corrupt society, but let's not go there. So yeah, we're pretty good at navigating that. And we thought the vocational skills we would be giving would be really good for children who were maybe autistic, maybe had disabilities, just not as many children that weren't academic. However, with the best will in the world, we were just not able to get them into the school. It was hard to find them, but even then, we were only able to get 2 mildly disabled children into our school. And it turned out that Pastor Sam, who runs our project, and he runs it very well, I have to say, but he actually believes that these children are cursed by the devil and that nobody else will come to the school, and he didn't want them mixing. Now, either I could try and change his mind, which is almost impossible. I know that, and there's no point. We have to be very sensitive to their own ideas and their own culture when we work there. Or I could try another angle. And then something strange happened. Well, Jessica Norby, I had been working closely with Jessica in Uganda as well. Now, Jessica had been a child soldier who came to the UK in the 80s after the civil war that broke out after Idi Amin's demise. There was a raging civil war in Uganda. And so Jessica had come here, and I had been trying to find a child soldier to interview for the fictional book. And eventually I managed to trace Jessica, and she spoke to me very openly, and we ended up becoming very, very good friends. And she'd set up the Mango Tree Learning Centre in Uganda, and she'd asked if Starchild could help her with the project. So we'd been working alongside them for a while. And she heard about my problems with Pastor Sam, and of course nothing surprised her. She's very Ugandan, but she's very got European sensitivities and lives in Sweden. And she's a social worker. So she said to me, Michaela, why don't you come? You're really passionate about this autism and disabilities, and so am I. Why don't you come and try and set up a project with us at Mango Tree? And so the board agreed, and then on my birthday, the year that Ronnie died, she phoned me at 7 o'clock in the morning, and had been out late the night before, to tell me that she was gifting me the land, which was just another miracle. So we had the land to build the Sunflower Sanctuary, which we wanted to do in memory of Ronnie. But we couldn't find the people because they're in hiding. And then something else very strange happened. One of Jessica's teachers hadn't turned up at school for a few days, and she'd been trying to phone her and she wasn't really getting anywhere, and so she decided to go to her home. And when she went into the house, she could hear this kind of moaning coming from the back. And she asked about it, and the teacher was, as if it wasn't happening, very dismissive of it. And she asked again about the moaning, and again got dismissive as if it wasn't there. And then she said, I need to use the toilet. So the toilets in Uganda are quite often out the back of the pit latrines at the back of the house. So she tried to stop her from going to the toilet. And she said, look, I really need to go to the toilet. So she went forward to the back and opened the door at the back to find little Kevin tied up and gagged. Now, Kevin was the boy in the film, I don't know if you would see, with the oh, you've got Kevin, that's good for you, Ken. I don't think you've done that before, that's a new one. But that is Kevin, and he is a lovely soul. He's just a beautiful, beautiful boy. He's non-verbal, and he does moan a lot, as some of these children do. But when Jessica saw the boy, she was horrified, and she asked what was going on. And the woman got down on her hands and knees and begged Jessica not to fire her. And she said, why would I fire you? And she said, this is my son, and I thought you would fire me. And she said, no. She said, I want you to untie Kevin, I want you to bring him to school. And she said, I can't possibly do that. Everybody will ostracize me, I'll have no friends, everybody will leave. And she'd already had to leave her own family and her own village, and had hidden Kevin all his life. So fast forward, they brought Kevin to the school. And some of the children ran away. And some of the teachers left. And Jessica said, it's fine, we stick by our guns, Kevin is coming to the school. Well, within a few weeks, some of the children, they all came back. Because they're mostly orphans, refugees, very poor, they're not going to get a free education anywhere else, and they missed their pals at school, and they missed their free meal and all the rest of it, and so they came trundling back to school. And then, a month later, the teachers hadn't found another job, and Jessica treats them quite well, and so they decided to come back after all. And now we have found over 50 families. It was like the jungle drums. Once we got Kevin, and they realised what was happening, other families couldn't believe it, and they started to appear on a daily basis. And they meet at the moment under a makeshift canopy. And as you can see, the children are helping to feed those children. They play with them. They have marched against disabilities, which is unprecedented. We did have to have police there that day, but we did it. And they are so looking forward to having their Sunflower Sanctuary, and the children all know about this as well, and they embrace them. So there's been a huge transformation in a relatively short period of time, and I do believe that God's hand is on the project. On a more personal note, I also discovered then that one of Frankie's brothers is called Stephen, and my older brother was called Stephen. Again, the coincidences are just incredible. And Frank, the other brother, my brother, was called Frankie. And then there's another brother, David. But Stephen, his family had died of AIDS. There was a huge outbreak of AIDS there, and the whole family, his family, side of the family, had died. And he had a child who was autistic. And they had been afraid to tell me about this when they first met me. And then they realised that I was interested in autism and then eventually told me the story about their brother and the situation that they had to deal with as a family. I knew nothing about this. So again, it's like God's hand, I just feel, has been really working in the background the whole time. And now to be able to do that and bring that forward with the family is just wonderful. We have a big challenge ahead of us, but I do believe that we're in a very good time. The government has had to address inclusion because of the push externally from governments that support funding there. They have not liked the treatment of disabled people in Uganda and have withdrawn funds, etc., etc. So there was a big push on. So I've already met with some officials and we are definitely not going to have any problem. They want this project to happen. They're not going to help us financially, of course, but they will not put roadblocks in the way. At least it doesn't appear to be the case, which is great news for us. There's also a big push on for training for special needs teachers. As you saw in the film, we have worked quite closely over the years with William Wood for the Communication Support Service for Autism and Disabilities, and our young ambassador is actually autistic, and he's a Paralympic runner. And so sometimes Cormac goes out and speaks about the charity as well, which is great. So some of those teachers are willing to come out to help us set it up. And we are also going to be looking for some special needs teachers. But it isn't going to be a school, it's going to be more of a holistic centre. It's going to be more of a place where they can come together, where they can work together to try and understand their children's disabilities and autism. And also the man that stayed, he's happy to try and help families and men to try and encourage them not to leave the wife. So it's about educating them that it's not a curse. But we have so much, I mean, even most of the kids are incontinent, so we need to deal with that as well. I'm trying to get funding with Makerere University to develop a diaper made out of papyrus, which is biodegradable and environmentally friendly. It's the same as what we've done with the Macapad, which cost us 10, for 10 it's 50p for the sanitary care, which is just really cheap. Which is great because it's just the same prices here, and the same with nappies, diapers, same. You're paying British prices there to have them, and it's too expensive. So we need to work and address things like that. We need transportation. At the moment they're getting picked up in a rickety old truck, and we've got, sometimes it's the grandmother that stays and the mother leaves and doesn't want to know. And we've got an 80-year-old woman who's carrying, this child on her back every day, which is just heartbreaking. So we've got things like that to address. As for sustainability, feeding, everything, we've already started that because we had problems during COVID with that group. So we mirrored what we did with the Women's Project, which is basically very straightforward and simple and works brilliantly. We gave them seeds. They have some land there, and the land in Uganda is very fertile. If you stand in it, you grow. It is a great country for growing crops. So we gave them seeds and they learned the basics of planting, and then we gave them some pigs, some chickens, rabbits, goats, and they breed them. And they sell the surplus in the market, and of course the chickens produce eggs, etc. And then the surplus of the crops they sell in the market, and they're able to feed their family. We've got them some sewing machines, some treadle machines. They've learned the basics of sewing. They make sheets, they make school uniforms, they sell those. They're basically self-sufficient now. We might pay £100 a year for seeds for them, and that's about it. It works brilliantly. They've got a little co-op program going. So we're hoping to do the same thing with the Sunflower Sanctuary with most of the women there. And then the children don't have to be chained up, tied up anymore while they go off and work. I think you would grasp that I don't think that woman was doing it out of any malice or harm for the child. Most of the women that I met tied their children up because they love the child. They're trying to protect the child. They're the victims of rape, abuse. Sometimes they wander off. And so if she has to go out to try and work somewhere, or a field, or even for a few days, then the child gets left quite often in the pit latrine tied up. And the mother doesn't want to do this. or the grandmother. It is really to try and protect them. So this way they'll have a place where they can leave the child safely, and they'll have a rota system so that if they're working, we can make sure that they're not getting left and tied up. But like I say, it's not going to be easy, but I really do believe that since we started this project, even getting the Guild on board, getting the funding, we didn't know how we were going to do this. And then this has happened, which was just, for me, another little miracle and sign from God. My mum was a Guild member, Dad was a Church of Scotland minister. They didn't set out to adopt a black child. On the adoption form, they put a hard-to-place child, ironically meaning maybe a child with a disability or a child that would be hard to place, maybe an older child. And the agency got back, it was the Church of Scotland Board of Social Responsibility at the time, and they got back to my parents and said, well, actually, we have a little black boy here and he's hard to place. He's already been out on foster and given back because of the racism issue. Would you be willing to take that on? And they basically said, we don't care what colour the child's skin is, as long as he fits in with the family. And the adoption agency were very concerned that Frankie and I were identical in age. There was only 4 weeks between us. So they felt there could be territorial issues. Maybe I would hit him over the head with a rolling pin or something and not be very happy that he was coming into my home. But it wasn't like that at all. And seemingly I was very good to Frankie, and we bonded really well, and the adoption went through very quickly. And he became my twin, and that's what my parents said. We were twins, pushed in the twin pram, went to school together, said to the teacher on our first day of school, we're twins. And when we got older, we would go to the bars together and the clubs together, and people would think we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and we go, no, we're twins. And that carried on right through adulthood. So, as you can imagine, it's been an incredible journey. I did not imagine this would ever happen in a million years. To meet Frank was the first that I met, and he looked so like Frankie, it was extremely emotional. And I thought God had given me a replacement brother. And then I realised, well, Frank has grown up in Uganda all his life. He's never set foot out of Uganda. And Frankie was very Scottish and wore a kilt, as you saw, and was buried with a ranger scarf. And if somebody asked him where he was from, he would be offended. Well, what do you mean? I'm from Scotland. I'm from Glasgow. And he spoke with a Glasgow accent. And of course, Frank was not like Frankie. So it's hard, but we have got a really strong bond, the boys and myself, and they call me sister. And there is a real genuine love there. And there is a feeling of family connection, but it is quite strange. And I've had to learn a lot. I've learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about the culture. They've tried to learn a lot about my culture as well. Sometimes those worlds have clashed, but never in a bad way. We've always been able to work those things out. But I think when I came along, they thought they'd won the lottery because they had a white Mzungu sister, and Michaela was going to buy them Nike trainers and buy them a new house and pay for their school their education for their children, and all the things I was going to do that I can't even afford to do for myself. So, yeah, it's been a learning curve, but it's been absolutely incredible. It's been just wonderful. Frankie's life and his death has absolutely shaped mine. And I do believe that God had a bigger plan the day that my parents went to Tanker Hall and saw Frankie and brought him home. And there is a huge void that never goes away, as anybody who's lost anybody dear to them, that never doesn't really heal. And I'm just grateful that I've been able to have an opportunity to transform that grief into something positive and leave a legacy for Frankie in a country that he never set foot in, with a family that he never knew, that his twin sister has now got to love and be part of that family. I don't know, I forgot to bring my book over, Ken. Do you mind grabbing the book? I think it's up there somewhere, up at the back near the box, the hardback one. I usually do a bit of a book reading, and your appetite for my book's been great. I've sold out. So there's no books available. I've got 2 books, but if you do want the book, I can take orders for it and sign it, and I don't mind bringing them back. Bringing them here for you if you want. You can obviously order it on Amazon, but I can't sign it. But if you do want a book, just please speak to me. And I don't mind doing that at all. Let me just see. I don't know if I've got it marked. I think I'm going to have to do another. I was going to do the one at the graveyard, but I can't. I think I've got the thing in the wrong place. I'm not very organised tonight. Oh, I've got it. Here we go. Have you got a good sense of humour? Yes. Okay. Right. Then I'll read this bit. I was thinking of doing this one. I'm giving a little bit of the story away here by telling you that I discovered that Frankie's mum had died. And when Frankie died, I used to say to people, maybe his mum has died and wants him back. It was just a way for me to kind of cope with the grief. And it turned out that Janet, his mum, had died just 2 months before Frankie. So obviously when I found the family, I wanted to go and visit Janet's grave. So this is us going. I've just met brother number 2, David, and he stays in Masaka, quite near the family home. And so we're on our way there. Another half hour's drive finds us outside the place Janet once lived as a child with her family. Frank tells me that his mother is buried here. It seems that in Uganda it is not unusual to bury your relatives in the back garden. I'm a little perturbed by this idea. I think about being a child and burying my hamsters at the bottom of the garden. I made small wooden crosses for each of them, and Dad always performed touching wee services as we placed them in the shoe boxes and put them in the ground. I remember our pet cemetery feeling a tad creepy when I passed by, but this is a big step up from that's actual people at the bottom of the garden. Janet's house reminds me of a slightly smaller, ransackled version of Little House on the Prairie. Her father's small wooden church on the grounds next to it is still standing, just a few feet away from the house. It looks a bit like a primitive car garage with a cross above it, but I am moved by its simplicity. It is like a beacon of Frankie's lineage, a bygone time in his biological family's life. I romanticise that a few local villagers might have come together with some primitive tools and nails and built this little church by hand. It is a credit to the parishioners that it is still standing here looking magnificently meek. I have the urge to go in and pray, but the church is padlocked. I'm sad that I am unable to honour Frankie's grandfather and his family by kneeling down in this humble little church that they have built. Janet's family still own the land, but there is another family living in the house. They stare at us, even while the boys speak to them in their own native language. Suddenly, the 2 boys and our driver sling garden hose over their shoulder. They motion us to follow them through a field of plantain. Apparently, this is the back garden. At least I'm dressed for the occasion with some casual khaki trousers and a loose cotton top. I've been learning. But by now I'm beginning to panic a little. Surely not. They're not going to dig her up, are they? Could this be another custom here to let me have a good look at her? It's obvious that no one has been here in a while. The undergrowth we fight our way through seems to be closing in behind us. It is claustrophobic. For the first time in my life, I wish I had a machete so I could chop down the overgrowth of huge banana leaves that I am trying to weave my way through. My skin is getting scratched to bits and bitten by insects. Something runs across my foot. Oh no, I hope it's not a rat. I have recently learned that from the locals that rats blow on your toes and feet to numb them and then nibble on the skin. At least it did not feel as big as the rat that crossed my path on the way to my guest house the other night. That one was like a small dog. It really was. I had the cases up against the wall and everything, and Ronnie didn't believe me. And he smoked at the time. And he went out, he pulled the cases off, and he was like, oh, don't be silly, there's no rat as big as that. And he went outside to have a cigarette and jumped back in. It's huge. So, Ugandan edible rat, I would not recommend you look it up on the internet, but anyway. Finally, we come to a clearing, and the two boys and the driver start digging. Oh no, they really are going to dig her up. Ronnie sees a look of horror on my face and asks what their plans are. We are very relieved to find out that they are just clearing the overgrowth from the top of what turns out to be 3 graves covered in concrete. The boys begin muttering amongst themselves in their native tongue and jumping feverishly from grave to grave. "Which one is Janet?" I ask. They look at each other. Frank eventually admits that, well, he's not really that sure. It has been 18 years after all. 18 years since they visited their deceased mother, and there's not even a headstone. They assure me that it was something they had always meant to do. Ronnie looks at me and mutters, "It's like the 3 bears. Mummy bear, daddy bear, and baby bear." What height was Janet? 5 feet 3 inches, I tell him. Frank is weeding around all 3 of them, and David is scratching his head. Well, the one Frank thinks it is for somebody about 7 feet tall. The middle one, 4 feet. The last one, probably about 6 feet. Despite Ronnie's calculations, neither of the brothers is sure. Eventually, Ronnie goes, "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo," and chooses a grave. Everybody sighs with relief. Frank and David agree that the one that Ronnie has chosen is probably their mother's. Yes, they have suddenly remembered it is. Hooray. I still do not know if it is the right one, but I kneel down with my yellow roses and I am overcome with emotion. I can hardly take it all in. I cannot believe that when I arrived in Uganda only a few weeks ago, I did not know anything about Frankie's mother. Now, here I am, knelt down at her graveside with his brothers beside me. The emotions are raw, really raw. Losing Frankie and having the painful separation of this mother and child is brought to light, and it hits me. I have come on a pilgrimage like no other. Frank wants to pray. He thanks God for his new sister. He thanks God for leading me here. He thanks God for revealing the truth about his brother in Scotland. He thanks God for how our family has looked after his brother. He thanks Scotland. He thanks Glasgow. He thanks Ronnie. He thanks the airline that brought us and the God who brought us. It is a moving prayer, although it is 35 minutes too long. I know that Ronnie is praying too for the word amen. I'm just going to do one more short paragraph, which I hope sums up the book. This book is about the remarkable journey of finding my adopted brother's family in Uganda 18 years after his death, and how I discovered magic in the universe. The unexpected twists and turns and remarkable coincidences that happened to me were deeply emotional and magical. On this soul-searching journey, I discovered as much about myself as I did my brother's family. I know now that there is a continuous thread that connects us even after death. Loss in life is real, as is the agony that follows that loss. Everyone has a story. Our lives are shaped by where and who we come from. In life, there can be massive successes, failures, losses, heartaches, loves, and deaths. The draw is unique to each person, as is how they respond and the ways in which they have to find within themselves their sheer resilience and determination to survive. I've learned that self-pity is perhaps the worst enemy in life. It does not matter where in the world you come from or how privileged or oppressed you are. This journey showed me that life is about the strength of spirit and the remarkable ability to heal, transform, and transcend. I believe if we ask, help is sent, but it is in response to our own actions and our faith that we are being listened to. I have come to appreciate the invisible world within me and around me, and to appreciate my blessings and the divine cosmic nudges that are always present. I have learned that the smallest act of kindness can never be underestimated for the person giving and the person receiving, and it has the power to resonate long after a person has gone. So there you go.